So, in terms of like staying true to yourself as well, guys, like one thing I really want to know is how did you manage to create like your work environment personality? Because I feel like when I say create, I don't mean as in how do you change yourself and do you transform into a new object? I mean, how did you manage to create the professional you? Like, what did you take any steps to get to that process, or did you feel like it just naturally came about through your experiences?
Oh, I would say on my first day, I was like the quietest, most stiff version of myself I've ever been in my life. And I'd actually had a total disaster that morning. My wardrobe had fallen apart in the night, no joke. This new flat that I moved into the day before, wardrobe had fallen apart, so all my clothes were really crumpled. When I woke up the next morning, it was a total disaster. I was late, and I was so worried about eating breakfast at my desk. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. So I sort of walking to work. I got the tube so I could sit and eat like a croissant on the tube. And so I remember having like the biggest disaster of my first day ever. And then I sat down, and everyone was so nice and so lovely that by the afternoon I just fully relaxed into myself. But when I arrived, I was just like really like, yes, of course, I can do it. Oh yeah, whatever. Like this, but I didn't even recognise myself. This weird, like super uber professional girl that is, which is not about like this whole thing. And then it was actually the people around me, because in my practice there's 14 of us in our little bit of the business, and everyone was just so lovely and so welcoming and just so warm that it took a couple of hours, and eventually I was like, okay, and then suddenly my actual personality ended up coming out. But certainly at first, you feel like, oh my god, I need to be the best version of myself ever at work, and I feel like there's that pressure to just sort of show up on the first day and be like, you need to be like your CV, basically, like, black and white, everything's great, I'm really amazing at everything, and you sit down and you can't live up to that. But I think there's that pressure to sort of just be perfect when you first arrive. And I think after that point, when you really get to a stage where you can kind of like relax and chat to people and sort of engage on a much more like social level, that's where you do your best work. Because when you're feeling relaxed and you're calm, your brain isn't going, right, do this and this while you're also working. When it becomes second nature to just act like yourself and do your job, suddenly you're doing a better job. So 100%, my work personality is about as close to my weekend personality as I could possibly get. But it really wasn't for the first 2 or 3 hours, like, no way.
I feel we can all relate to that though, like that first day that you start, you really don't know what to expect, especially because, you may know people work in certain spaces, but you haven't been there for a long period of time. So when you first, for example, when I first entered my role, I was, okay, I need to impress. And then I was like, do I really? And then as time went on, people being very relaxed, very much themselves, then I think I got to a stage where I was a bit too much myself. And then I kind of lost that balance a little bit. And then I think I was trying to act like something I was not on another level. So I think it is true, you get that thing where you're trying your best to be impressive, and then you're trying to relax and super cool, and then all of a sudden you just get some sort of
that middle ground.
It's a middle ground where like you're not trying to impress, you're not trying to be super cool, and you comfortably present yourself, or more comfortably than you did before.
Definitely.
I think the more you adapt to your environment, the more the authentic version of yourself will come out, and so it's just about giving it time, isn't it, to know your surroundings and know who you're working with, and then your authentic self will come out. That's how I felt anyway.
Yeah. Because even when you're just trying to orientate yourself like physically, like, oh my god, right, where's the kitchen, where's the bathroom, and everything like that, suddenly you're just constantly on alert, like you're trying to think, oh god, what's this person's name, and where's this file? They told me how to work the printer and I can't remember, and I can't ask anyone because they told me 10 minutes ago, and all this stuff is just, and your personality just can't shine through because you're so busy trying to like take everything in, work out how it all works and stuff and things like that. But then eventually, I think you're right, when you've adapted and you feel comfortable and suddenly like you sit at your desk and it feels like your desk, and that's when you actually you are yourself, and it comes across, I think, so much nicer as well when you're working with people like that. But it doesn't happen overnight.
No, definitely, I echo what you say, because I'm quite an introvert, so I think that when you're an introvert and you're trying to integrate into a new workplace, it's like 10 times harder, because you're thinking, oh, what will they think, like, oh, she doesn't want to talk, and it's like, I do, but I have like, it takes me a long time to like get to know people and like, properly form connections, because that's how I like to like mix with people at work. So it's about, how can I still show that I'm like friendly, but at the same time stay true to myself, because I'm not going to try and pretend to be an extrovert if I'm not.
Yeah.
And so like I have my moments. If there's a certain topic where I feel like actually I have strong views about this, I will share my views, and that's when my personality will come through on that particular matter. And then I also like to joke around a lot, so like I will kind of have a few like jokey comments with this one or that one, but I won't put myself in a situation where I have to go and do something first to start that conversation. That's something I'm definitely still working on, because again, I think it's just my personality type, but it's being like so aware of your personality type and making sure everyone else knows that that's not, you being stuck up, because like that's a really big thing, especially when you're a minority within an institution that basically looks nothing like you.
Yeah.
You don't want to come across as that person.
Yeah.
And maybe making people aware that you are a little bit introverted as well.
Yeah.
That's something I've learned to do.
As a minority, has it been difficult sort of integrating into the workplace? How have you found that?
You see, I'm like at the same time, I'm also unashamedly like proud of my roots and where I'm from, and like I say, I will very much talk about these difficult topics when I get the chance to. And I'd say for me, it hasn't been difficult because people have been open to kind of learning about that, because they're so different to you that they want to learn. But I have had experiences in the past where they have not been so open to wanting to learn about you, because they're very much set in their ways. So it's about kind of training your brain to go, not everyone's like that, and these people are different, they want to learn, and you can give and take. You can learn from them and they can learn from you. So I would say it's not been difficult in my current role, no, because I just kind of went, well, I'm never going to allow anyone to make me feel like that ever again. I'm going to be unashamedly myself. And so I'd say, choose your topics of conversation wisely, because you don't want to be that person who's controversial all the time either.
Constant social activist. Just kind of like,
you want to like approach these topics with a little bit of humor as well, and break it down. And also, make sure when you are contributing, you're not going off on a run. Like it's a nuanced point that you're making, because a lot of the things that we're dealing with at the moment, B word, can be very, very controversial and contentious, and you don't want to be that kind of stirrer person, but at the same time you want to be like, well, maybe you should look at it through this lens. So I would say, no, I have not found it difficult to integrate, but I definitely have my moments where I do sit there and I'm like, gosh, I am so different to these people. Like I'm struggling to find points to relate to them, but then I'm like, that's okay, because you're also being able to see how different you are. So
What about yourself? How have you found that?
I found adapting as a minority in terms of race was quite, I don't want to say easy, but certainly it didn't feel like much of an adjustment, because it is one of those industries, and it is one of those companies, I think, that I work in, where there are plenty of people who may not be exactly like me, but certainly come from a similar background at least. But the biggest leap for me was certainly, as I was saying before, the difference in socioeconomic circumstances. Because it kind of feels like my industry as a whole is certainly very middle class or upper class. And so my company as a result is also very middle class, and it is something that they have acknowledged and they are working on, certainly, and trying to find ways of bringing different groups of people into the business, which is really cool and really interesting, and I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I mean, sitting down and hearing people talk about, like, I don't know, like, oh yeah, like me, like going like pony club over the summer when I was younger and stuff, and I'm like, I don't even think I'll be like touching ponies. Like, and these people, they're not bragging, they're not trying to make you feel bad. They assume that you're from the same background as them because they don't know any different, that sort of thing. And they're like lovely, warm people who would never ever want to try to make you feel bad. But when people talk about sort of their family homes or their wealth and things like that, and or their backgrounds or where they grew up or how they grew up and things like that, and it is difficult to relate sometimes. And also kind of the people who are sort of like oh, so why aren't your parents helping you pay for your flat? And it's really awful. It's really difficult trying to say, because they can't afford to. And you don't want to be that person that makes that person then feel bad for assuming that you're not poor. I don't know, like, it's really, it's difficult to kind of get across without sounding like you've got a chip on your shoulder, I think.
And you also don't want to sound like a victim.
You
don't want to be that person either, like, oh, poor me.
Yeah, this is it, like growing up in a council estate, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, and I've never been ashamed of it, I've always been really open about it, but so when people are like, oh right, so you're not going on holiday this year, and it's kind of, well, I can't afford it. Well, your family not going on holiday this year. Well, they can't afford it either, but like, but you can't, and there definitely needs to be a better way of having that discussion without like looking like a victim, feeling like a victim, but also making that person feel uncomfortable, because money is one of those things that does make people feel uncomfortable. And I think when somebody has come from a place where their family's been able to support them financially completely through moving to London, through new jobs, things like that, and when you're not in a position like that, it just kind of feel like there's a gap that's opened up. So it's not certainly anything that I've tried to hide, but there's been certain conversations where I've just kind of smiled and nodded and like, you know, you don't really say anything because like, you know, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not a real issue at all. But it certainly feels like, you know, society makes us feel like there should be a gap. Like, you know, these people are richer than us, so we should, or whatever, or this person's poorer than us, and there's so many sort of expectations, I think, certainly not with the people that I work with immediately, but like a certain idea of people who grew up on council estates that certain people have. So maybe you don't say it straight away because then people are thinking, right, your family were on benefits and nobody's ever had a job and your mum's got 10 kids or whatever, and suddenly there's this whole picture that someone's painted. So I think moving to London, especially where there is so much more money and so many more wealthy people, I think it's been interesting, but it's certainly it's staying true to yourself and not trying to hide the fact that you've not come from that particular background, and also that you don't resent somebody who hasn't come from that background. That's really important. But yeah, so I think definitely it's been a learning curve basically on how to still find a connection and be sociable with people who maybe aren't in the same situation as you. But it's all about, you know, education and actually talking to people about these things. Yeah.
That's interesting, you know, because I feel like, you know, because we all went to university, but because I feel my university experience, I came across so many different types of people. Like, I feel that was kind of the playground for what you're meant to understand when you get into the working world, because we discussed it. Like, it's like, you know, coming across different people who would brazenly talk about some things that you're like, I don't really know what it is. Like, you know, I'm pretending like I do, but I don't really know. And then you have to put on the face like, yes, I've been on there 4 years, but yes, I'm going in the next 5 years. But like, I do get that, but I do feel because university, because I thought, I can't speak about everyone here, but I thought I embraced different kinds of people. I felt I met some wonderful people who wasn't from my background, but they're just so tuned in to my experiences, and you're like your parents raised you like so holistically in terms of understanding what life's like in all avenues. And I feel even those people that I met who maybe didn't have the same exposure to people from my background, I still thought they were appreciative enough to want to learn. I remember, I'll give an example, when I was at university, like one of the flatmates, I decided to watch a film called Paid in Full. And if you know that film, you know that it is not, it's very much, how do you describe this? It's a gangster film. And they had no idea about what that was about. So for me, I think just go through that made me more comfortable now, like when I'm working, to think, okay, like people may not be from my background, they may not understand what I've been through, but as long as they're open to learning, as you were saying, they're open to understanding what maybe not what my environment was like, but maybe what I would appreciate, or maybe where I can you know, I can understand, then I just accept that, because you know, not everyone's from the same place, but if we appreciate where we come from, then it makes it a lot better. Definitely. And I think maybe on some final points, maybe to wrap up the discussion, what do you feel people watching this, you know, who are about to transition to a job should really understand coming from university, and how do you feel they can navigate those challenges that are to come?
I think it's definitely about being your authentic self.
Yeah.
Because when you arrive in a new environment, there is automatically that feeling that, like, if you are amazing on your first day and amazing on your second day, and you can keep that up, and suddenly you can be this new, better version of yourself when you sit down on your first day. Nobody can keep that up. It's completely unsustainable. If you don't come in with the attitude that they have hired you, not a better version of you, then you're just going to spend so much of your energy and so much of your time trying to adapt to this situation where maybe people around you are posher, or maybe they're richer, or maybe they're whiter, or maybe they're upper class, or maybe they're not. But if you're trying to sort of move yourself into that space with the attitude that you need to be better to be equal to them, you're not going to get anywhere, because you're already equal to them. You have a job in the same company, you were hired by the same people, you're on the same track as them. You might be a little bit behind or whatever, but if you come in with the attitude that you are as good as everyone else there, and that you can be yourself and they're going to accept that, then I think you're going to be much more comfortable than if you come in with the attitude that you need to be better to be in that space, because you're already there. Like they gave you the job because you are who you are. So I think it's definitely all about coming in with the attitude of being your best professional self. Maybe no stories about like drunken weekends and stuff to begin with, but you do hide certain parts of yourself the same way you do from your parents. Treat your co-workers like your parents. If you wouldn't tell your parents a story, don't tell your co-workers a story. Basically, you like falling in the Thames on Saturday night is not a parent or colleague worthy story. But other than that, be yourself when you show up, because you've got to be that person for the rest of your time there, and it's pretty exhausting pretending to be someone you're not.
What you know,
I'd say manage your expectations, because as you say, you don't want to be that constant activist person, and also at university you're loose, right? You can just do whatever you want in so many ways, whether that's getting involved with the societies or going out and doing whatever you're doing. When you get to a professional environment, you need to manage what you can bring to that role in terms of what you can realistically achieve, especially when we're dealing with entry-level positions, and being okay with that, like humble yourself, because everyone's on the same route, everyone's at that kind of same level where they're just entering into that professional world. So for yourself and for your employer, make it easy on you, like what can I do realistically? And then also going back to your point, be true to yourself whilst you're doing that. And there may be some amazing things that you can bring to that role, and your connections that you should definitely tap into when you get the opportunity, because I feel like one thing that I'm noticing a lot is more and more companies are having conversations about diversity and inclusion, and how can they improve that. And this is where you can bring your networks into how you can help shape that movement. So don't be ashamed of that part of yourself. So those are the two things I would say: manage your expectations and be true to yourself.
100% about being true to yourself, because I think it's easy when you're in that sort of space to think, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, maybe the real me isn't good enough or whatever, but you're there for a reason, they've hired you for a reason, they want you to be there, they want you to be yourself, and I think it's important not to underestimate the amount of influence you can have, and you can share your story and you can engage in positive conversations with people about life that maybe they wouldn't be having with other people. So again, just don't be afraid to share your story and be your authentic self, I'd say.
Man, I would definitely echo that. Man, there's so much wisdom in the room. I don't know what I could add, but I think, it's the same thing, like in terms of just understanding what value you can bring to the table and bringing that value. Because if you're from an ethnic minority and not everyone understands your perspective, sometimes you could just provide a perspective. If there's an ignorant comment that's made and say, no, actually, I see what you're saying about that, but actually that's not how people are like, you think like this. Or, if you come to work, and let's say, like I've had maybe some examples where people ask, so what do you listen to? And you're like, well, you got to give them the education because they've actually never heard of a lot of the things that I've come across, and it might be a bit unfamiliar, might be a bit unnerving, but at the same time, like I feel, just understand that just because you're different doesn't mean you're not any worse or any better. It just means that you have a different perspective that you can provide, and you can give them that in abundance, and then you can actually let them leave that workplace knowing not only is there a skilled and talented person from a less privileged or ethnic minority background that works in that workplace, but also now they understand some things that happen in the world that they never did before. And I feel like when you make that transition into that new environment and you're adapting to it, I think that is the key thing, just knowing that regardless of what you're there for, like you you are you, and you can always provide some sort of value just from being yourself, like on top of the quality of work that you provide. Yeah, that's kind of deep. But yeah, that wraps up this episode. Thank you guys for the discussion. It was lovely. You know, thank you guys for watching too. Really hope you appreciate it. Make sure you hit the S button and do that, or leave a comment.
Thumbs up as well.
Give. See,
Don't forget that.
yeah, give the one that give that. That's the one. That's the good one. Thank you guys once
Thank you,
again,
everyone.
and hasta la vista.